everyone, it's Stephanie here and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be creating with the Happy Birthday stamp set. This is a really great stamp set because the happy part of the stamp is a trio and it's all one stamp, and then the birthday is a separate stamp, so you don't have to actually use them together. I want to create a colorful card where we use the happy stamp twice on a card panel, so I'm going to go ahead and stamp this onto my card panel using my Misty stamping tool so that I can line it up perfectly onto my panel. So I already have my stamp positioned onto my Misty door. I've kind of lined it up ahead of time to make sure I have it exactly where I need it, and then I left it on my Misty. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp it first onto this panel that measures 4 inches by 5 1/4. I'm using extreme black ink to do the stamping since I am going to be Copic coloring this when I'm finished, and I'm going to do a double stamp to get a really nice solid black line. Once I have the first trio of happy stamped, I'm going to move my panel up in my Misty so that I can stamp that same happy trio at the bottom portion of my panel. I'm just going to kind of move the panel until I can figure out exactly where I need it to be so that they have just the same amount of space between the top and the bottom stamp, so it looks like one continuous happy and you can't really tell where one stamp started and the other one ended. Once I have that figured out, I'm going to stamp this twice just like I did the first time. And I'm actually going to take a Sharpie marker and draw a little line on my grid mat just so I know exactly where this panel needs to go. This is so that I can do some mass producing and stamp a bunch of these at once. And now you can see that I have both of them stamped and they're perfectly centered on our panel, both top to bottom and side to side. So for the coloring, I decided I wanted to do an ombre look and use pretty much all of the same color family, but I wanted to use different hues of it so that I could go from darkest to lightest, starting at the bottom and making my way up towards the top. So what I did is I picked out a bunch of Copic markers and I have them lined up on my work surface there from darkest to lightest. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to color in that bottom happy with my 2 darkest colors. So I'm taking the second to the darkest color and I'm going to fully color in that happy word. And this does take a few minutes. The letters are a little bit tricky because you have to kind of turn the paper as you go. But I'm just going to very carefully color this in, making sure I'm staying in the lines there. And then once I have that base color on, I'm going to take the darker color and I'm going to come up from the bottom just to add a little bit of shading there at the bottom. I want to kind of make all of the different happy words two-tone. So what I'm doing is I'm making the lighter color that I'm using in this bottom happy word. That's going to be the darker color when I make my way up to the next one. So the BG49 is now my lightest color and the BG09 is going to be the darker color on this one. So I'm going to continue this way all the way up until I reach the very last happy, and that is obviously going to be my lightest one of all. So for this one here, I use BG10 and BG11, which are both very light colors. So you can kind of see I jumped ahead here since I did the same process for each happy. And now that I'm finished, we have this really cool ombre look where we have the really dark happy, but each color kind of leads into the next since we used the lighter color as the darker color in each of the happies as we made our way up. For the rest of the card, I do want to add an additional sentiment to complete the happy birthday, but I don't want to use the large birthday that came with the stamp set. So what I'm doing is I'm using the Biddy Birthday Wishes stamp set, and I'm stamping out the happy birthday to you onto a piece of black licorice cardstock. This is being stamped with Versamark ink, which is a clear sticky ink, and I'm going to add white embossing powder on top of this and then heat set it with my heat tool. Once I have this heat set, I am going to die cut it with the Skinny Strips Dynamics. I'm using the larger of this die set because the smaller one is too small to fit across this phrase, but I don't want it as long as it is on here either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to die cut this first, and you're going to see when I bring it back on screen that we have a very long end on it on the right hand side. At first I tried to play around with it to see if I liked it kind of coming off the side of the panel, but I did decide that I wanted to have it right in the center, so I wanted to add that same decorative edge to the other end. So I'm going to do some partial die cutting. I just put it back into the Skinny Strips Dynamics, figuring out exactly where I wanted it to cut. I used some tape to hold it in place, and then I ran that end through my die cutting machine, and that die cut just that end piece. So now I was able to make a custom size that perfectly fits that sentiment. To add this to the card panel, I am going to use some foam adhesive. We're keeping this card very plain. This is going to be the end of what we add to this panel. So I thought a little bit of dimension just added a little bit of something to the card. I did layer it over one of the happy words, and I used my T-square ruler to make sure it was lined up. And I'm going to use a coordinating card base to give this card kind of a monochromatic look. So I'm using Tropical Teal, and I'm going to adhere the panel directly on top there with some regular adhesive. And once I have that done, we have our birthday card finished. Except for the coloring, which took a little bit of time, this is a really quick and easy way to create a card. If you wanted to speed it up a little bit more, you could just use one color versus two. And of course, if you know me, you know that I had to create a rainbow version of the same card. So here's what that one looks like. I used rainbow colors for all of the happies, and I just changed up where I added the little happy birthday to you sentiment strip. So now I have two different card designs that were created the exact same way, but they have completely different looks because one is really colorful and one is more monochromatic. I hope today's video gave you some ideas on ways that you can use the Happy 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 Birthday stamp set to create some really fun, colorful cards. If you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to click that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos on the MFT channel. As always, I appreciate you being here for another video, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks so much for watching.